As a pastor, when Easter rolls around, Holy Week and Easter, one of the things that I struggle with in the congregation is inviting people to walk through all of Holy Week, because we have a Sunday of Palm Sunday, and then the next Sunday is Easter. And unless you intentionally choose to attend the Maundy Thursday or Good Friday services, or you take the time to read the gospel account of the crucifixion, you can skip from Palm Sunday to Easter without experiencing the crucifixion. And one of the things I say to my congregation every year is we can't experience the depth of the joy of resurrection until we have walked through the grief and loss and suffering of the cross. And just the numbers of people who show up for Easter who haven't been there for Holy Week sometimes is disappointing. I want people to experience that, because the two go together. And to be able to be fully present to the suffering of Jesus and then the joy of resurrection, I think helps us be fully present to the suffering in our world, in our lives, and then experience the hope that Jesus offers. But I also understand that, all of the challenges to that, and see it in my own life as well. But that's one of the things I'm always working on that time of year, is for myself and for others, let's spend some time at the cross before we get to Easter.
Sure.
Yeah, to me, that's the hardest thing. I think just having to talk to people, preach to people, include in worship the theology of the cross is, people hear it, I think, but they're ready to, as my phrase is, to jump to Jesus in the empty tomb. We just want to move right there. And I do think that's a hard thing to do. I don't want to travel with Jesus that long road of suffering and sorrow to get to the resurrection. But I do think you're exactly right. We miss that experience of the risen Christ is also the crucified Christ. I mean, I do think we miss a component about who God is when we leave God only at the empty tomb, and we forget the fact that a God is a God who has sacrificed and died on a cross, and that piece of who God is goes into the resurrection. You can't have the one without the other, but it is kind of a tough sell sometimes. We'd rather get to Easter Sunday.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I think for me it's because we feel the pain of the world every day. So we are walking through that, and we experience it in the news and just in all the things happening around the world. And so we want that joy, we want it in our lives, but I think what we're maybe misunderstanding is we're seeking a manufactured joy in a way, instead of the true joy of Jesus, which we can only experience as we go through his death and resurrection. But we sit in pain so much that we don't want to go to that depth. We just kind of want to live in the hope. We need the hope, and so that's where we would like to live.
Yeah, and I think being with Jesus in the cross helps us see that he's with us in that depth of suffering.
Yeah.
That we can really feel that and experience that.
Yeah.
But sometimes we don't want to go to church and feel the suffering.
Right.
But it's all of a piece with who God is, and in every aspect of our lives. So I totally understand that.
In my life journey, I have walked through many hardships, many seasons of doubt, and one of the things that has, I think, kept me very connected to Jesus, connected to the vine, is just his faithfulness to me, and just remembering how I have been saved and what that moment felt like in my life, and also just remembering the faithfulness of God. There are all these markers in my life and on my heart that I have of moments that God has met me kind of in the pits of life. And so remembering those moments, and I do keep them written in a journal, and so I try to recommend to people, just hold those as markers in your life that you can go back to, because we are going to experience hardship and suffering over and over and over again in life. And so that has been one thing, and I like to keep it in my Bible. You know, sometimes people keep genealogy in their Bible, just like the history of their families. And I like to keep the history of my God story in my Bible and just have it there in hopes that one day, you know, it will be passed down to generations of my family to see how faithful God has been to me. So that has been joyful to go back and read from time to time.
When you said that, that just reminds me. I have a whole closet full of all of my journals that I kept, a record of sort of my spiritual life, where I am at certain points. Yeah. And as the older I've gotten, I will sometimes just take an occasion to read back a few ledgers. And one of my really uncanny learnings was that, wow, it just goes like this. My life is like this circle. Over and over again, I go back over the same thing, which is a good thing because, gosh, I was here before and look where I went next. Oh, I'm here again. What do I do? Oh, there I am already. So I think that's really a gift to have that record of yours. And I do the same thing. I think it's really helpful to remind yourself that you've been here with God before, and you're going to be here again with God another time, but right now you're still with God along the way. It's not that it gets better, it's that God is with you on all those occasions. The doubt, the suffering, the concern, the misdirection, the lack of direction, and all of a sudden, I'm here again. Wow, what a good thing. So, yeah.
One of the things that amazes me when I've had those seasons of doubt or spiritual drought or whatever, when there's a moment that it sort of washes over me again, or I feel God's love, there's always this sense of God's been there all along. Yeah. You know, God was not absent from me. It felt like it in the moment, but when I come out into the clearing, there's this awareness that God never left me, which is reassuring the next time I enter into a season like that. And to know that that doesn't really bother God as much as it bothers me, probably, you know, that God's just going to stay right there with me. And doubt is part of faith, you know, asking those questions and being in those seasons is just part of the spiritual journey, and that there's so much grace in that. And the more that we can convey that grace to each other when someone else expresses doubt or is in a difficult season, to say, it's okay, you know, we all go through it.
Yeah, and those seasons of doubt tend to lead to deeper faith on the other side.
And I think I would say, add to that, that's a great reason why you should write in your Bibles. Everybody should write in their Bibles all their life, so that you go back and just see it. It's already right there every time you turn a page. Oh, that question came up then, or I never thought about this verse. Every time your whole journey is sitting in the Bible that you read over and over again. It's a great way to do that. Well, I've talked about Sabbath, and I think one of my big suggestions initially for people trying to better understand Sabbath and better practice Sabbath is really to take a cue from Rabbi Heschel when he said, time is holy. Time is the first thing that God designated as holy. And that really is kind of a profound insight that if when you read that, you think, oh, that's right. So to know that is to me, rethink and reclaim both our understanding of the purpose of Sabbath and what we do in practicing Sabbath. So to that, I would say the next practical advice I would say is to kind of let go our preconceived and long-standing notions of Sabbath as just getting up and going to church in the morning on Sunday morning. The notion that Sabbath is a vacation, you know, time off, or even worse, time for me. That is not what Sabbath is. There's much more of a communal notion about Sabbath, about the restoration of community completely. You almost can't do Sabbath by yourself. So as I was thinking about what's a practical way that someone could practice that, well, most recently I've decided that one of the most marginalized communities especially in our country today, is the residents of assisted living facilities. They are in many ways cut off from their family, especially during COVID, we watched that happen. But they're cut off from oftentimes the worshiping life of the community. this is what Sabbath was all about, was bringing that together. So I would say, here's an example. Just pick one. Pick an assisted living facility and decide to take a regular time out of your life to be present with someone there. You don't even have to know them. In fact, that may even be better. Just go and pick some people out, maybe one or two, and just make a regular occasion to spend time with that person, doing whatever, just sitting with them, reading, listening to them tell their story, singing a song, whatever, just be there. If you make that a regular practice of your life, I think that time you spend with them, for them will be Sabbath, and for you will be Sabbath, because in both ways you are restoring each other's community together. And that's, to me, the purpose of Sabbath. So that'd be my suggestion, or one.
That's such a great word, because as a pastor, since I work on Sunday, I take Thursdays off. And so often what I want to do and what I often do is spend the afternoon like binge watching Star Trek or something, that sounds like it's going to feel really good, but it's like eating fast food. Like once the day's over, I'm like, oh, that didn't do me any good. It didn't do my soul any good. And the idea of looking for practices that actually help me connect with other people, even if, I'm an introvert, so even if it's like writing letters or making one visit in the day and then taking a nap, or just incorporating that human connection and things that take a little bit of, okay, I'm going to get up and do this, rather than on the couch and do the thing that seems easiest that doesn't actually feed my soul. So that's a good challenge.
Yeah. And I have found, for me, preparing for Sabbath has been really helpful. So knowing, because I am an overthinker and there is always a to-do list in my head. And so preparing as much as possible to set aside time and getting tasks done before that has been really, really helpful. Allows me to just rest in the moment and worship and commune with God and visit with people. I love the idea of visiting nursing homes. I especially, like, my heart has been for them during the pandemic and the elderly. Just because there is such a loneliness there that, I don't know, I think our society misses, and there's just so much beauty and wisdom and community still left in their lives. And so, but Sabbath, the idea of Sabbath, how it changed for me is this idea of working out of rest instead of rest as a reward. We start our week with rest and work out of that. And so moving from like a scarcity mindset to an abundance mindset of I will have what I need to get through this, and then back to commune with God and with other people. So
Purposefulness in Sabbath is making the preparations to be able to focus on whatever that time that you're going to make is holy. If you're going to set it apart as holy, it's separated and consecrated. That requires primary preparation ahead of time, but that allows you to really just be there, just be fully present. Like when you're fully present with people, that is a building up and restoring of community, because for the most part, when we are not doing that, we are doing this back and forth with each other. We're not distracted. We're distracted. Yeah. I'm not really with you. I'm not really with you. I'm going past you. It takes time and prep to sit down with a person in a room for a couple hours without any agenda whatsoever and just let the hours be. What is that? That's Sabbath.